So we get a call from this guy. My name's Dorr, and I was just a young guy, and I served on a hospital ship, and I've got a lot of pictures. And boy, did he have a lot of pictures. And he came to us with a wonderful collection of his Ectochrome slides. Remember back in the days when you took a picture, you sent it home, you didn't see the picture yourself for about 8 months. They finally got home and it hadn't developed. Well, that seems like a million years ago, but that's how it was. And so he had a great collection of slides that we did use and had them on display. And it's kind of a unique story, a unique job. And we've asked Dorr to come and share some of his images and what his experience was in Vietnam. So let's welcome Dorr Warner. Dorr, I'm going to hand the images right here and turn it over to Dorr.
Thank you, Earl. I want to thank everyone that attended tonight on our veterans and also to the Williamston Museum. I looked on my father also. My dad was 31 years old, drafted in 1943, was assigned to the 36th Infantry Division, and was deployed to Italy. He was severely wounded north of Rome, 1944, and was received treatment on the battlefield and also in England, and then back home from upstate New York. He was at a military hospital, Army hospital in New York for 9 months. And when he was discharged, he had a great, positive, productive, prosperous life. That's my dad. And also, he had 2 brothers. His older brother was drafted in the Army and served in Belgium and Germany. Was not wounded. My father's younger brother, 10 years younger, was a Hellcat fighter pilot for the Navy. And when he was strafing Okinawa Island before the invasion, he was hit by some Japanese shore batteries and had to land the plane. It was on fire, it did not have a parachute. And the reason he told us afterwards was they scrambled those pilots so quickly because the kamikaze attacks were going on that he and other pilots forgot their parachutes. They had to land. There was land this aircraft in the Pacific Ocean. He was rescued. And I can remember them talking about that. He said, it wasn't so much being shot down, so to speak, that was so frightening. It was being in sick bay in the bow of the aircraft carrier, thinking, we're going to get hit by kamikazes, this ship is going to sink. He said, I couldn't move in the bed. My back was so damaged that I would drown. He said, that was my biggest fear, not flying that aircraft, but actually having a problem with it, the aircraft carrier being hit, sinking. So just honor those men, and also...
Mike, closer to your mouth, please.
Okay, is that better?
That's better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
My grandmother, my father's mother, what must that have been like to have 3 sons go off to war in combat and hear nothing about their situation, their welfare, because back then, unlike now, there was no instant communication.
No.
My mother heard about my father being wounded 6 weeks after the fact when he was recuperating and being treated in a hospital in England. And it wasn't from the Defense Department or any government official. It was from a nurse. She sat down one day and wrote a letter to my mother, and she said, that's how I was notified that your dad. Got it? Right?
Yeah.
My father had been wounded and was recuperated. He'd be back home in a few months. So that's the honor of my dad and his brothers and my grandmother. Ready to move? received my draft notice in 1966 and decided to try a different route than what my dad did. So I joined the Navy Reserve program, which is a 2-year active duty enlistment and a 4-year reserve commitment after that. So I went through basic training and then deployment training in San Diego, California, which was 4 months. It was reduced to 3 months because the Vietnam War was heating up. This was in 1967. And was assigned to first Portsmouth, New Hampshire, the Navy Hospital, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and then to the hospital ship Repose in Vietnam. I had a camera with me all the time. I love photography, and first thing I did at PX when I got over there was to, in Da Nang, was to buy a camera. This is a shot I took of the Repose. This is a stock photo, but this is a great shot. This hospital ship was first built and commissioned right after the surrender of Germany in 1945. It had served in the Pacific for a couple of months, and after the Japanese surrendered, I think it was in August of 45, if I'm not mistaken. It was in the reserve program. It served in Korea for a couple of years. And at that time, when I got to Korea, the helicopter, the medevac helicopter, was just being employed as a way of transporting wounded from the field to medical facilities. So it was decided to put a helicopter pad in the back of the ship.
Yeah.
And there were two main medevacs in Vietnam that I was familiar with. The Cobra, which could take several people. This helicopter is called a Chinook, and it can carry many, many more ambulatory and also litter patients. We both landed on the helicopter pad, all types of weather. I was amazed at the pilots, their professionalism, their skill. A ship that's bouncing up and down periodically.
How long was the ship?
The ship is a little over 500 feet long, about 75 feet wide. Earl, can you go back to the other, go back one more. There are 7 decks, and hospital beds were about 700, about 720. And the upper decks out of the 7 were for the wards, various wards, orthopedic, surgical, cardiology, medical, etc. The clinical area of the ship was several decks below. That is where there were 4 operating rooms, radiology, pathology, cardiac, etc. Map of Vietnam at the time, which was 1968. This is the DMZ. Vietnam, through the Geneva Convention in 1954, was split into 2, North Vietnam and South Vietnam. The French, this was originally a French colony. World War II, the Japanese occupied the country. After the war, the French went back in. And the communists were getting organized in the north and providing a lot of opposition. The French were defeated in 1954 at Dien Bien Phu, which is, I think, up in North Vietnam at the time. After they were defeated, they decided to get out of the country. It was vacuumed. So the Geneva Accord split the country, I think, in the 7th parallel. And the North became communist under the leader Ho Chi Minh, that you've heard about, and the South remained non-communist. We got involved, Mary got involved early on in the 50s. We were sending advisors in to help initially with the French, and then the South Vietnamese Army down here. Can't remember, I think it was in the early 60s, more troops were sent in. And when I arrived in December of 67, there were 500,000 Americans in the country. We went, this X area here is quite small. It was called I-Corps, and this is where the Marine Corps had two divisions. So being a Navy hospital ship, we would go from Da Nang, actually a little bit south, a place called Phu Bai, up to the DMZ. And what we would do, what the ship would do, is wherever the Marine Corps was in some battle area, the ship would get as close to the shore as possible. And then the medevacs would come out to it, and we would provide treatment and care. There were two hospital ships at the time. The other one was called the Sanctuary. Same hospital as the Repost. Currently today in the United States Navy, there are two hospital ships also. One's called the Mercy and the other one's called the Comfort. That's me. This is training at Corpsman School in San Diego. Girl wanted me to put this up, I'm not sure. But that was the training we went through. It was initially 4 months, and because of the war was heating up, this is 67, it was reduced to 3 months. I was in a company of 40 other corpsmen. There were two companies, so 80 corpsmen. And after we graduated, we had a graduation ceremony. All 80 of us received orders for Camp Pendleton to be trained as combat corpsmen for the Marine Corps in country in Vietnam. A day before we were scheduled to get on the bus to go to Pendleton, we got called back into the same auditorium, and they told us that the Marine Corps said they did not have room for us. Our orders were canceled, and that's when I received orders for Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Well, now, my friend took a picture of me, but apparently Earl thinks my friend took a picture of the girls on the beach. So, it's up to you guys. we were training 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We had basically every weekend off. So we would just, a friend had, he was from Hawaii, and he was a surfer. So we would go up and down the coast. I would watch him, and he would surf. This is a Cobra medevac. We probably received most casualties from this craft, from the field, directly from the field. This is a Chinook. Carries more people. We landed like this, and then when I was assigned at first to the orthopedic surgical ward, and when we worked, we worked 12 on, 12 off, and every one day off a week to do, write letters, do laundry, other things, rest. When we were not working the ward, we were required to be on duty as litter bearers to help unload the helicopters when they came in. This is the litter here, and everybody immediately went to triage right here. Triage was where all of the wounded were sorted, and it was determined by the physician, the corpsman, and the medics, and the nurses where that person would go. Some would go immediately to operating rooms for surgery, others would go to wards, others would go down to radiology, etc. These are ambulatory, of course, coming in. That's the Marine Corps Chinook. He is directed to go into triage. This is from a smaller craft. This is the Cobra, litter bearer. wherever that person would go. Down to OR, of course, and you were dismissed. But if you went to radiology or some other clinic, you had to stay that person until it was determined that that person would be going to one of the wards upstairs. Another example. Probably all the photos I took, I really liked this one of the best. This was when the wounded would come into triage. Of course, the clothes would be taken away, and it would be put in, gowns. The helmets were always stacked outside of triage. So I was walking by one day, and I said, this really tells a lot, because you can tell by the condition of each helmet how long they were in country, how long they were in combat, just by what the helmet looks like. This person probably was in a long time before he was wounded. Conversely, this one here, not so long before he was wounded. And a lot of them would tell a story. This is the girlfriend of this person, Kathy, from Bradford, Pennsylvania. That was pretty common to put your hometown on the helmet at that point in time. The one I really liked, which was kind of the sentiment for a lot of patients I worked with, was, why me? And then you kind of get into some of the politics of the Vietnam War. But I thought, man, that tells a lot. So you just see all the different wear and tear of the helmets. I just thought they told a lot about the person, how long they've been in country, what was going on with them. This is a ward, orthopedic surgical ward. We had about 35 to 40 beds. This is the Corpsman. And the complement of the ship was about 30 physicians of all specialty areas. 30 nurses also, registered nurses, 250 corpsmen, and there were two commands on the ship, one the medical command, and then one the regular ship command. About 200, 300 regular Navy personnel that actually operated the ship and maintained the ship. So this is just typical of what we did. Registered nurse, patient. One of the specialty areas was cardiology, of course. This is a heart and lung machine at the time. Most of the wounds that we treated were from gunshots. Small arms fire, mostly. There was also a significant number from explosives. The Viet Cong especially had a lot of bombs they would set off, booby traps, etc., in the jungle, on the trails. This probably is a result of gunshots. So heart and lung machine, he was in for surgery on the heart, of course. So one of those specialty areas. Another shot of the ward. Wounded being cared for, corpsman, working the ship, helping out.
How long were we in there?
It just depends. Our job was to stabilize them so that they could be evacuated back home. That might take days, might take weeks. You may have to have several surgical procedures. So it's hard to tell. It just depends on how severe the wounds are and what has to be done to help them become stabilized. There was a treatment room also on this ward. Most of the wards had treatment rooms. This ward being the orthopedic surgical ward. The treatment ward was where patients would be dressings changed, minor surgery could be resolved, surgery, and a lot of this as a corpsman. Yes, we went through in this situation, what I found, I was all on the job training. I remember one day I was in the treatment room assisting an orthopedic surgeon, and he looked at me and he said, "Have you ever sutured anyone?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, watch me." He goes over to a patient and sutures. He said, "I want you to go over here and do this guy." So I went over, he watched me, and I sutured a couple patients up. All on the job training. Can't do that in the United States, of course. Probably once or twice a month, officers from the Marine Corps would come in and visit a medal and award medals to the wounded Marine. And I can't tell what is. Most of them, of course, were Purple Heart. Some were Bronze Stars, Silver Stars, etc. There's a Marine officer, Navy personnel, Navy. Same thing here, receiving maybe the Purple Heart. There it is there. It was time for the patients to be evacuated off the ship, back to Da Nang, to be sorted, and determine where are they going to go next. Most would go to Japan, some would go to the Philippines, and then they would be evacuated to the closest Navy hospital in the United States. Portsmouth, where I was the first tour, was a hospital for wounded Marines from Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. There was also another hospital, Navy Hospital in Boston, so we had Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. We would prepare the patients to be evacuated, mostly by helicopter. We would do this when we're back in the harbor of Da Nang, not up by the DMZ, but way down in the harbor. And then they are on the way to be evacuated off, to be evaluated in Da Nang, at the hospital in Da Nang. Vietnamese soldier. We served obviously Americans, but also Vietnamese combat vets. When I was over there in '68, like I said, there were 2 Marine Corps divisions up north. We also brought in a South Korean division called ROC, and several Army units were moved from the south up into my corps also. This is a Vietnamese soldier. This woman is one of our interpreters, Vietnamese interpreter. We had a man and a woman. She's going back to Da Nang for some reason, who knows. Maybe her family lives there. These are soldiers, Marines, going back in for some purpose, back into the city. Casualty received the Bronze Star. When we were out of the harbor of Da Nang and going up the coastline, the idea was to try to get as close to the beach as possible, depending on the depth of the water. And when we did that, you could actually hear battles going on, and sometimes see smoke and stuff. And eventually you would see a medevac chopper come up and fly right up to the ship. These are Phantom jets, Da Nang, Marge, Air Force, Marine Corps base. These are probably Marine Corps pilots on their way up north, maybe up into North Vietnam, maybe to Hanoi. This is the port of Da Nang, some of the mountains around northern Vietnam. This ship here is a cruiser at 16-inch guns, fired toward Laos, which is about 30 miles away. Laos was also a conduit from North Vietnam into South Vietnam, and they used a system of trails called is that what it was? I can't remember. But yeah, so he probably, fired at that. I was just out walking around with my camera, and I looked up, and here's a jet coming in on fire. Probably going to try to land at the Da Nang Air Force Base. Don't know what happened. Just flew out of sight. These are small PT-type boats, our security, so to speak. We were told by intelligence that the North Vietnamese military and government did not believe that the hospital ships, both the repos and the sanctuary, were just that, hospital ships. They were disguised as troop carriers or ammunition-laden vessels, and therefore were liable to be attacked. So they would come around, and they told us that the big danger, because the communist forces did not have long-range artillery, so we were told that possibly they're going to send out frogmen with bombs to try to attach them magnetically to the hulls of the ship. So they would drop charges like this, like a mini depth charge, down near the side of the ship, to dislodge if there was anybody down there. And so we call that our security. They would come around maybe every couple of weeks and do this. These are men, I'm not sure if they're coming or going. They got suitcases, maybe they're leaving. They're in the terminal at Da Nang and ready to get on a flight home. Well, this is interesting. We had 30 nurses, and these nurses, we're in the war zone now, these nurses are going over to an opposite club for a party or something. So I just happened to be walking around and said, well, this is kind of strange. They're all dressed up, and they're heading out. These are men that are recuperating after being treated on the ship, and just relaxing, talking, socializing, playing instruments. Probably most of these men will be evacuated back home. Some, depending on the nature of their injury, their wounds, and the healing process, will be redeployed back into their units in country. USO shows. We have a lot of USO shows, musical shows, etc. for the men, entertainment, relaxing, just kind of take their minds off of what happened to them and what's going on in the war. This is the South China Sea, of course, and we're allowed to swim in it from time to time. So these are men, probably not patients, of course, but could be medical personnel, could be ships personnel swimming. This really is China Beach. This is the beach near Da Nang, beautiful sandy beach, big resort now, hotels and everything. We were allowed to go in periodically, and they would have recreation like this. This is volleyball, of course. Cookouts. There was an outdoor movie theater. Just a way to decompress and kind of not think about the war. This is me in a bunker at China Beach. These bunkers are all over the place. The big threat was from rockets that the communist forces had. Some mortars, but mostly these rockets. We just kept flying in periodically. Christmas 1967. They just arrived about 2 weeks before, so there's a part of the celebration on the ward in Santa. Vietnamese children. These were all not so much casualties of war, but we had a large population of children who would come in with different types of diseases, maybe congenital problems, heart issues. And they would be treated and then sent back to the families later. So I'm just walking around one day, and I saw these Vietnamese kids playing cards. And this kid showed me his hand. And same thing here, children. One of our nurses, one of the babies. I shot this going into Da Nang for some reason. A lot of times we went in for at the big medical facility in Da Nang for training. I may have been doing that. I turned around and I saw that I got to get shot. This is Earl's one of his favorite pictures. He said it reminded him of the closing of MASH.
That's it. That's not it.